part two of the podcast and video cast regarding evocation and demonology. I'm Mondo Homunculero. I'm your narrative. I'm your narrator. Not everything I say is based in scientific fact. A lot of it is personal opinion based on personal experience and my perceptions of that. So, I am the master of my universe, not yours or anyone else's. I'm glad to say that, but it would be an awesome responsibility, even if I was capable of taking it on. Not worried about that. Anyway, back into this idea about consciousness, egregores, evocation, APEs, another person's entities, OP, other people's entities, all these things. Now, just got off the phone with a fellow podcaster who I participate in his podcast every week. And we were talking about the collective unconscious of Jung. I'm not going to go into the definition of that and what it really means, although it's my pet bullshit theory that there's this vast stream of energy, information, consciousness, a collective of all of that, whether it's energy or not, whether it just totally comes out of mind as an energy. I think I kind of buy into the physicalist, the materialist view on that, and think that this stuff, it actually has a physical value that someday we'll be able to measure. There'll be some kind of, and some of the research now is saying it's electromagnetic energy. We don't know that. Okay. Well, I'm going to get one of my friends on here, hopefully, that will do a podcast with us. We're going to interview him and get a talk from him on what he thinks is going on. We're going to do that on Two Stone Dudes. This guy's a really cool guy. He's a professor at one of the universities. Experimental psychologist, has degrees in physics and mathematics. And besides that, he's a hell of a good magician. Anyway, so I'll get him on. Getting back to this whole thing of who, what, where, why, and why people get fucked up by all this, it's because we get crazy beliefs in our mind about things. And I'm guilty, trust me. And I've seen a lot of other people who have suffered from this too, from beliefs of others and their own. And most of us get our beliefs from someone else or some other source other than it just being organic. I know people who think their beliefs are just completely individual and organic. Well, in a sense, they are, because their beliefs, based on information they may have gotten from other people or from their observations of information, perceptions of other people. Most of it, I believe, comes from somebody else, and then we synthesize our own perceptive realities, or as Robert Anton Wilson called them, reality tunnels. There's just not enough time to go into all these different thinkers and what their ideas and philosophies may have been. Just not a lot of time for that today. So I think that we create a lot of our own stuff out of our own minds. And that came from our teachers that we had. It came from political influences. Nowadays, I think it also came from media, social media, news media, electronic media, even print media, not as much as it used to be, but print media. I think a lot of it also came from our parents. Some people really got that notion that their parents were their gods. That's what I thought. I mean, in the action of belief, that's what I thought. Cat came in. He had to get some love. Yeah, he's a good cat. Anyway, so they all come. Our beliefs come from others. They're not ours, really. They come from others, and that's where that all comes from. Sorry about the jostling there. Just cat came and moved the tripod for the camera. So these beliefs can cause us to think things and actually foment our own perceptions based on a combination usually of these beliefs. And then we can start to manifest things, video. We can visualize. We can do visualizations of these things that have audio with them, and may have attendant what I call hallucinations. Now, some people, when you say the word hallucination, oh my God, psychosis, and blah, 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 LSD, blah, 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 all these negative connotations. I believe that and this is from my work that I've done in NLP and hypnosis and also with magic. I believe that we create our own perception of reality based on outside influences and how we synthesize them within ourselves. This is what I think actually happens. In NLP, a valuable tenet that we've learned, or a valuable idea that I've taken on, is that the less beliefs, the better. So if I have and it's not impossible, I think, to be completely free of beliefs, although it might be nice. Reason being, we always have a clean slate to work with, and we might be able to change the filters on our perceptions, because our perceptions are filtered by our current beliefs and thinking. So if we can get a lot of these beliefs out of our mind, like this is one of the things we learn in meditation, in certain meditative disciplines, is that we let the mind run until it runs out. And then we have, so to speak, quote, a clean slate, unquote. I don't think that's entirely correct that happens. But we do have a clean slate. So we can start to use belief at that point, and this all depends on what's left over there. What are the artifacts that are still in there? Because they will influence whatever creativity that we're going to have in creating new beliefs. They're going to influence that. So kids, what I'm telling you is this. The less beliefs, probably the better. That's not advice, that's just my own experience. When we have that situation where I don't know if you're ever going to be completely belief-free. However, it is a great state, like no mind, to try to work on attaining. And I think it can be obtained for very brief moments. However, that's the only moment that we need when we're doing what I consider to be magical work. We have an intention, whether that's to create an entity, whether that's an enchantment, a spell, in other words, whether that's to divine something, or whether that is to go through this complete deconstruction of ourselves, whether that's to get illuminated. All these things can be obtained and happen if the slate is cleaned, if there's periods of no mind. And they could just be a fraction of a second, which I think is really about the only time we get those. And then when we are placing that intention into the ethosphere, let's call it the ethosphere, okay? Not as ethos, but the ethersphere. That place where the ethers go, that place where there's no space and time that are relevant, where there's no distance that's relevant. That space is a quantum space where we can turn our intention into a reality, or at least move towards a reality we are seeking, another reality tunnel. Now, whether that just winds up being a simple change of perception, whether that is an actual physical event that occurs, I've seen people work strategies that cause very unlikely physical events to occur. I mean, I could translate this into current terms. Now, let's talk about the election in this respect. There were a lot of people, magical people with those abilities and psychic abilities and whatever you want to call this whole gamesh, who put out intentions to get rid of Donald Trump, to vote him out. Some people wanted to kill him. Some people wanted him to suffer immeasurably. Some people just wanted him gone. Well, the end result is he got beat in the election. That's so far. We'll see if any of the rest of it comes to pass. I know some people put some pretty strong effort into this. They created entities. They did spells. They divined what the results could be. People put a lot of work. Thousands of people put work into this. So I think I'm seeing a partial return on the investment. And I'm pretty glad about that, because these things never work out 100% to my liking. Now, I know people who tell me that when they create an intention and it's a very good one, that it comes out 100%. Okay, great, man. I want to learn how you did that. And I've been learning these types of things since I got involved in all this 30 years ago. So now we've gone from evocation and spirits and demonology to magic in general. And I'm going to swing right back into the evocation. So when it comes to these folks who believe they're being plagued by something, now there's people that are plagued by the shit their parents told them when they were kids, and the parents are dead now, but they still hear the parents' voice or see the parents' image in their mind. There's that still going on. Now, in my view, that can turn into a spirit. I think this is where some of the ghosts, family ghosts, have come from, for example. I know that family demons have come from things like this. Like this one lady that I knew, who I loved her actually. She was just so snappy and smart, and just there was so many great things about her. But she was crazy. In fact, a lot of people called her Crazy Susan. I would bet that she's probably dead now. She's about 70. Let's see, so she's about 71 or 2 now. But she was plagued by a lot of health issues, and I don't think she got them correct. I hope that she did, and that she's well. I really do. Really cared about her. Really loved having sex with her. It was amazing. She was an amazing sexual being. However, and part of that was the demons that were in her. I saw her face while she was writing me change into these demonic faces that I'd never seen before, that weren't anywhere that I could recollect in my conscious psyche. They might have been subconscious. I probably hallucinated the whole thing. This is my point, that a lot of these experiences come as hallucinations. That's really what they are. That these God experiences people have, that the other entities like demons and other entity experiences, I think these are strictly coming out of our minds. I think it's psychological. I like the psychological model of magic. I'll go over the models of magic sometime. Psychological means it's all in your head. It all comes out of here. Naraka, hell or heaven, is between your ears. Of course, a lot of the other researchers, or I should say narratives, one of the narratives is that heaven is within. That's, something was attributed to something Jesus may have said. But the kingdom of heaven is within. Well, okay, but meaning that it's in the heart. Well, there is work that says the heart and the mind have this connection, which creates some kind of consciousness, some kind of set of feelings. There is that, and I'm not going to dispute it, although I tend to be more of a head-oriented person. Well, if you went to astrology, I'm a double Aries, so I would be centered in the head, but I don't necessarily think any of that's true. It's just, we can correspond to a million things which are not true, okay? Which we like because they're little pet theories that confirm our belief bias. So it's confirmation belief bias when it comes to this type of thing. Because everything that's being said is strictly an opinion, which comes from my experiences and my collective information that I have, which is limited because I am a human being and I only have human perception. One of the things that we have attempted to do in our magical work is to reach other types of perceptions. In other words, to contact other universes in the multiverse, the multiple set of universes, to contact other consciousness which are not human, which may have been consciousness that were before humans. And actually, there may not be a before or an after, but there might only be now. And so that span of what was past, future, and present is actually a huge now. Don't ask me to explain this. I don't have a physical scientific definition for it, although I would think that maybe some cosmologist or astrophysicist does. It might be that it's all confirmation bias. I'm just throwing shit at you. If it sticks to your wall, great. If it doesn't, great. You come up with something that you like, that you want to tell me about. I want to hear about it, please. At any rate, I think that our perceptive world is made up of our collection of experiences that somehow are anchored and somehow tend to corroborate with each other. They tend to compile on, and they tend to come up with our favored perception of things, our our narrative, our opinion, or whatever. And I think that's kind of the case. Now, people have done a lot of meanderings. My whole thing is I'm an evocationist in this respect. This is my main magical practice. I have entities that do my bidding. I utilize other people's entities for some things. Mostly they're my own construction. That's what I do. My enchantments work in different ways. They utilize that particular realm and other realms. Divination, same thing. So while I am chiefly involved in evocation, it's not a filter that I filter all my other workings in the other realms of magic through. That's just kind of the way I do it. Uh, People have their own ways of doing things. They're either, people like ceremonial stuff. Okay, people like Wicca stuff. They like that ancestral feeling that they get from it. They like other traditional magical paradigms. Some people really like the Yoruban derivatives. They like the Congolese derivatives. They like Santeria. They like all these different Umbanda, Kimbanda, Santos, Voodoo, Voodoo. Some folks like those particular paradigms and create their own narratives out of them. For me, the whole thing is about results. Now, I have not tried to become wealthy. I've worked on increasing my personal wealth and my financial solvency, which that has occurred. I went on the wrong path of love magic, for many years, and I've had a lot of negative consequences because of that were of my own doing. I must take responsibility for. Uh, it when I posit myself as a shit magnet, meaning I'm attracting people because of my shit that corresponds to their shit or a lack of that shit and a want of it. Okay, that's happened. There's also been very positive, very wonderful relationships which evolved. And, when it comes to relationships, my personal view is really a kind of like a monogamous, but also polygynous, to somewhat polyamorous, celibate for long periods of time. I've been celibate now, I think, for about 3-4 years. Don't even count the days, don't even think about it. That does not include personal autoerotic activity. That's activity with females. Okay, I'm not really bisexual, so I'm really straight. I don't, I'm not going to go into my likes and dislikes, but suffice it to say, my preferred method of sex with a member of the opposite sex is that, and it's in person. That's my preferred method, and if that's not happening, it's okay. Suffice it to say, there are many years that every sexual act that I involved myself in was dedicated as an act of magic. I cannot think of but maybe only a couple where they weren't. And that worked good, that worked bad. It depended upon where I was at in my universe, where I was at with my beliefs and thinking at the time. And keep going back to this. I'm really a proponent of the psychological model, which says what's in here determined what comes out here to a certain extent within the realm of possibilities. Because we have the interaction between this world and this one. And while we do have some say-so in what can determine outcomes in our physical world, there is some things we have no say-so about. Like, I might try to convince you to do action A against your will. Chances are it's not going to happen too easily. I might be able to persuade you. Other things, where we usually get people to go along with us is where they're already going along with us to some extent, and maybe we give them some information that causes them to change their minds. So that's what we're really talking about here. So we have power over our own lives. We're not powerless. There are things that we don't have power over. I don't have power over geoclimatic events. I don't have power over the sun rising or setting. I don't have power over the phases of the moon. I don't have power over the weather, although sometimes I wish I did, and I know I've caused some things upon great occasion. I'm not deluded enough to think that I was a grand wizard who could completely control or even periodically control the weather to any great extent. Wish I was, but that's just not happened that way. So in this, I have to believe that powers are limited. For instance, where there's sweat equity or elbow grease involved, and there's an intention, that has a greater possibility of occurring sometimes that are only an intention, some things that are only intentions. Other times, that intention has come out of here already aligned with circumstances that exist. And so the self-hypnosis lays there. And that's a lot of this whole thing is staying in a trance. A lot of us, I'm included, I'm in a trance, my own trance I've created that's melded with trances of others. So I believe that freeing myself completely from a trance allows other trances to get engaged. Is there a trance-free state? I don't know. There might be. It might only be momentary. I don't know. I think there are moments where it seems like it's trance-free. However, reality is once again perception. And if we get a grand perception of things that goes beyond our ability to filter those things into new perceptions, and that does happen. And that's where, great science ideas have come from, inventions, new ways of thinking. That's where these things have come from, is when there is that moment where our belief system gets transcended and where other perceptions come to us that previously did not occur to us. They might have been there the whole time. I think there's just a whole lot of information coming at us that we don't get. And I think what the statistics say, it's something like 0.3% or something like that. It's a very low number. So if we're free from these filters that we have that keep a lot of that out, sometimes I think some stuff comes in that's been there or has just developed that we've never seen, thought of, or knew about before. And that's where this cool stuff happens. And this is the whole idea, is to get more and more perceptions of what's real and what's not. And what's not seeming real might actually have reality attached to it. And all this stuff is kind of like Don Hoffman says, these are kind of like icons on a computer screen. They're just representations of our perceptions. And as organisms, they're used for evolution. And the evolution has to do with successful reproduction, which I have done. And there's been a subsequent generation spawned from that. So in that respect, I'm a success. And the most intellectual of us are going to die and become extinct. Yes. So everything, it seems, is grand folly, right? Right. However, while we're experiencing this grand folly, let's have a good time. Let's help another person. Let's have a good time. Let's be good to ourselves. And let's find out what love is and share it in a very unselfish way. Thank you. This has been the Demonology Podcast, Part 2. Mondo Homunculero, your RLG, your radical left gangster.